Hi, welcome back to Clarity Off Grid. Today we're going to talk to you about poop and water.
Specifically in this video, we're going to talk about how we manage our waste and our water without being connected to the sewer or the water grid.
The first and primary reason why we have a composting toilet here is to avoid the expense of an expensive septic system. The second reason is we live in a place that only gets 12 inches of rain a year, and we do not want to be flushing that precious water down the toilet.
And the third reason is because I want to leave a lighter footprint on this precious planet. Welcome to Clarity Off Grid. We're Matt and Christina, and we love traveling in our van with our dogs, Jessie and Lily Bell, exploring breathtaking places and meeting kind and generous people. When we're not traveling, we're savoring our off-grid lifestyle in our sustainable home in the spectacular Colorado mountains. If you like this video and want to help support our channel, you can send us some love by clicking the heart below this video.
So how do we manage living with a composting toilet?
In 2010, when I designed and built this house, there were very limited options for composting toilets that I was aware of. And I ended up with a very expensive, complicated, large toilet that combined both the liquids and the solids in a drum. And that toilet was an absolute nightmare. In a very short period of time, it smelled like an outhouse. And even though it was vented through the roof, which helped the smell in the house, it still vented outside and you could smell it in the yard. And we just didn't have guests up because it was kind of embarrassing having this outhouse smell. Now we have so many more choices for composting toilets. And for me, the fact that they separate the liquids from the solids has totally changed my life and made it so much more easy and manageable to even have a composting toilet. We've used the Nature's Head composting toilet and the Sea Head composting toilet, and we like them both. And if you would like the nitty-gritty details on those two toilets, check out our video, The Scoop on Poop, and we'll put a link in the description down below this video. If you've ever used a pit toilet in a campground or when you're traveling, you know that they smell. And the reason they smell is because the pee and the poop all go into the same place and they mix. And that's what makes it smell. So just some basics about composting toilets if you've never seen or heard about a composting toilet before. Our composting toilet doesn't require any water. It doesn't have to be plumbed to a water source, and it doesn't flush any water down the drain. It just sits here on the floor and we can move it in and out. So when we use the composting toilet, we open the lid, we sit down, the pee goes to the front and the poop goes to the back. If we made a number 2 deposit, then we close the flap, we close the lid, and then we rotate the handle in order to mix that deposit in with the medium, which is cocoa coir. Just to be clear, after we've made a deposit, we don't have to open up the toilet like we showed you. The toilet remains closed and we just turn the spindle with our foot about 10 or 12 times. With 2 of us using the composting toilet, and we do drink a lot of water, we need to empty the pee bucket every couple of days, and then we need to empty the solids bin about once a week or so. We got a lot of comments on our video, The Scoop on Poop, about putting toilet paper in a composting toilet. And I really think that that is a personal preference. For us, it's just easier for us to put the toilet paper in one bin. We find that it breaks down and it hasn't been a problem at all. However, if you find that you're emptying your toilet too often, or you just feel like it would be better to separate it, go ahead and separate it. You can keep a little closed garbage can next to the toilet and toss your toilet paper in there. I mean, they do that all over Mexico. So it's really up to you. But leave us a comment and tell us what you think.
It's really impressive how long you can actually go under certain circumstances before you have to change the poop box out. We've gone 6 to 8 weeks with the two of us using it on a daily basis, and there are a lot of factors involved. When we were in Mexico, where it was 90 degrees every day and dry, and we had the fan installed, it was drawing fresh air across the poop box all the time, it was amazing how much composting happened in the poop box. In the winter, at home, where it's between 60 and 70 degrees in the house and a much higher humidity level, we actually have to change this out about once a week. No matter how much composting we get done in the poop box itself, there's always more that has to happen, and we let our compost rest for at least a year to complete the compost process before we use it. And we do that here. The composting system that we use, we basically got from the Humanure Handbook. And what it is we have 2 bins. They're each about 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. And this is the one we're using right now. We've actually been using it for about a year and a half, and it's about 2/3 full. And we just put all of our compost in there, we mix it up. And then we have this lid to put over it because our biggest challenge is keeping the dogs out of the compost. Anytime we put our kitchen scraps in there, they love to go in there. So I put a lid on it, the lid just goes over it. And when this side gets full, then we'll empty out this side, which has been resting now for almost 2 years. And it's now down about halfway down because it's just compressed as it composts. We're not experts on composting by any means, and I do know that there's always a balance between the amount of carbon and nitrogen that you have in there to try and generate a thermophilic compost. A good thermophilic compost pile will be, if you take the temperature, which we do have a thermometer here, if we put the thermometer in there in a good thermophilic compost, it will run at about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. We've been trying to generate a thermophilic compost bin for years and still have not been able to do that here. There are many factors involved, and if you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear it.
In our Scoop on Poop video, we showed that we emptied the pee bucket in on top of our compost. We got a lot of comments about that. Like Matt said, we're not experts, and I've been trying lots of things over the years. One of the reasons that I have emptied the pee bucket over the compost is because my experience with that first composting toilet that I talked to you about that mixed the liquids and the solids, it was a mess to deal with in the toilet, but it made amazing compost. And so one of the reasons I think we aren't getting good compost out here is because we live in a very dry climate. Compost needs to have a balance of being not too dry and not too wet. If it's too wet, it's gonna really stink. And if it's too dry, it doesn't compost very well. So the reason that I was emptying the pee bucket over the compost was to keep it wet. Are you considering building an off-grid or sustainable home? I see far too many people making costly and frustrating mistakes because they didn't get the information they needed before getting in over their heads. Whether you plan to do all the work yourself or hire professionals, you'll need a working knowledge of the features you want to incorporate into your home. You'll want to get this information sooner than later because it takes time to integrate all the information you'll want to know before designing your home. If you wait until you're ready to build, it's too late. I'm offering my online video course, Designing Your Sustainable Home 101, dirt cheap. because I want anyone interested in sustainable or off-grid living to have access to this critical information today. Check the description below this video for a link to get started on designing your sustainable home.
So that brings us to the water issue.
You can see how fluid.
We live in the Southwest. We're right on the edge of the high altitude desert. We have had years of drought here, something like 12 years. Even Lake Powell is getting so low that it can barely generate electricity. Our local reservoirs are also very low. So we are very water conscious here.
I had two choices for water when I decided to build on this property. I could try and drill a well, or I could use water catchment. Drilling a well on this property had no guarantees. Most of the people around here have had difficulty getting good wells, and even if they do find a well that has a significant water source, it often has very high sulfur content, so it's hard to use that for domestic water. So it just made sense to me to design the house to catch our domestic water.
Our entire roof is our water catchment system. The water runs off of the roof into a gutter system and into our cisterns. The roof was designed to be almost flat. It's just a 1/12 pitch, and that is so that the water can run off, but the snow won't slide. And we did find that even with that 1/12 pitch with the metal roof, the snow did tend to slide. We have snow fences on the standing seam roof to keep the snow on the roof so that it'll melt and run in through the gutter system. The water gravity feeds into the house and is pumped through two particle filters with a 24-volt DC water pump, basically an RV pump that pumps it into a pressure tank. We have about a 30-gallon pressure tank, and then that provides pressurized water for the domestic water use in the house. And then under the kitchen sink, we have a carbon filter that is actually a 3-stage carbon filter that takes out all the chlorine that we treat the water with. It takes out everything except the total dissolved solids. I do have a water test kit that I can test the water occasionally, and we treat it with chlorine.
Well, that about wraps it up for our domestic water system. It's very simple, but it's really effective. And it gives us clean water out of the tap, just like you have in your house. So you may be wondering what happens to all that water that comes out of our sink and our bathtub and our washing machine if we don't have a septic system. Well, tune into the next video. We'll tell you how we manage our gray water system. Thanks for coming along with us on this video.
We appreciate you sticking with us through this video and for joining us each time you do. Look forward to seeing you next time.